Good morning. Hi, Mom. Hi, everybody. It's Wednesday, October 25th. Another wet morning across Wisconsin. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow up here in Chippewa Falls. And we'll get the show started at 6:06, right after radio news and commercials. But for those of you watching here on video, either live or later, tell you that coming up, we'll have the latest on what appears to be the fourth nominee for Speaker of the House for Republicans. We'll try to keep up with all the moving pieces there. We'll also talk to Melissa Baldoff in this week's Climate Check about things that the DNR has been doing compared to the things the DNR couldn't do back when Scott Walker was governor and you weren't even allowed to mention the changing climate or acknowledge it. We'll hear from Sharita Booker about some of the most watched, most clicked on stories on all the Up North News social media platforms. And then we've got some big news in the next hour. Big news for the state of Wisconsin. A huge win for Wisconsin jobs after designation by the Biden administration that our state will be noted as a technology hub for major investments in high-tech research and manufacturing. We have a guest who's right in the middle of it all. Wendy Harris will help us understand how this will work in Wisconsin for precision manufacturing, biohealth technology, personalized medicine to improve healthcare. All of it's going to be great for the state economy. So we're looking forward to talking about that. And another surprise in the baseball playoffs. We'll tell you who's going to the World Series. Let's see, it's Wednesday, so Todd Alba will be along before we wrap things up as well. So stick around. We'll get the show started just 4 minutes from now. Bob Look is online. Bob, good morning. Thank you for the nice note. Appreciate that. We'll get going here in 20 seconds.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, let's get this day going. Hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is Wednesday, October 25th. It's another beautiful day to have you here up north from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. Maybe through the Civic Media app. Maybe you're not listening at 6:06 in the morning because you've got us on a podcast. We appreciate that too. Or through social media. Just nice to have you here in a little place we call Wiscommon Sense, where we're going to unpack the news for you and talk about all manner of topics that I'm bringing up or that you can bring to the table as well at 844-967-2789. Nice to have the early risers with us. I see Bob Look is online. Good morning to you, Bob, as well. Thanks for the nice greeting over on one of our Facebook pages. Here's what's on tap this morning. Still wanted one House Speaker. The Republicans might be closer, but we literally had to jump into this show description last night, backspace over the old version, and start over after the Republicans' latest candidate for Speaker of the House was nominated Tuesday morning and pulled out of the race by Tuesday afternoon. And I think they now have another nominee, their fourth. We'll try to keep up as Republican members keep rejecting their own until they're left with, I don't know what happens when you run out of all of your members. We'll also talk to Melissa Baldoff in this week's Climate Check. We'll talk about things that the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has been able to do for our climate and for the environment compared to the things they couldn't even talk about when Scott Walker was governor. And by the way, that whole notion of government telling you what you can't talk about and can't think about, keep that in mind when I tell you about the newest nominee for Speaker of the House in just a couple of minutes here. We'll hear from Sharita Booker. She's our social media manager at Up North News. For those folks who haven't been following the show for very long, Up North News is a separate entity from the Civic Media Radio Network. We're a digital newsroom that puts stories together on our website, through our newsletter, through social media posts, and Sharita Booker puts up the social media post, and she'll tell us more about some of the stories that you've all been clicking on and viewing in just a few minutes. We have a very big announcement in the second hour for folks who haven't heard about it yet for the state of Wisconsin. A new generation of jobs is going to be coming to the state after this week's designation by the Biden administration that our state will receive the designation of a technology hub for a major federal government and private sector investment in high-tech research, manufacturing, and all the jobs that are going to come along with it. Our guest, Wendy Harris, is at the center of all of it. She'll help us understand how it works and how Wisconsin will become even more of a leader in things like precision manufacturing, biohealth technology, even personalized medicine to improve healthcare and also to improve our state economy. So that's coming up at 7:30. We'll have Todd Alba in to talk more about his show, which this week moved. It had been 1 to 3. Now it's noon to 2 all across the Civic Media Radio Network. It's Wednesday, so we'll visit with Melissa Kay from Locally Grown Radio in Wisconsin Rapids. She'll help us with today's history lesson and music break, and we'll bid a fond farewell to a Hollywood icon who passed away yesterday as well. You can be part of all this, as I mentioned, by calling the studio line at 844-967-2789. If you're a bit more passive about your notes, prefer a keyboard instead of your own voice, send us an email, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. Or as Bob did earlier, if you're watching on one of several different Facebook pages where we put a live video feed of my mug yapping at you every morning, put a comment there. We'll see it and maybe put that up on screen as well. Speaking of showing off people's mugs, Sam Davison is down in Madison at the Civic Media headquarters. Sam, good morning to you. What's it like down there? It's still awfully wet and rainy up here.
Yeah, it's not coming down too hard, but it's sprinkling a little bit. It's decently wet.
We got more than decently wet. Eau Claire set a new record for rainfall yesterday for that day. I think the old record was like 1.5 inches, and more like 2.5 inches of rain fell. Yeah, we've got all of the, all the yards, that don't have sidewalks and things have the large puddle / lake, that's in there now. It's just been going on, and it's so odd because it had been so dry all year, and now, I mean, it's wet. It is really wet, but if it replenishes the soil moisture for next year, I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, it's better than snow too, I guess.
Well, that's the other thing. Sherry and I were talking over dinner last night in Tilden over at Brazina's. We were getting burgers over there, and we said between what was falling yesterday and then that one last week, remember the one where Jennifer Wojcicki said if it had been snow, we would have gotten 10 inches?
Yeah.
This definitely would have been, 1/2 foot of snow at least. And we know that it can snow that early, in the season. So we're very glad it didn't, because next week's going to be cold. We're talking about lows in the 20s and highs in the 30s in places, just in time for Halloween.
Yeah.
Which leads me to make this point, and I know that it's not, but I don't see any reason why we can't collectively say, you know what? No, Halloween on October 31st is not working. And move it to, September 30th, or just a couple of weeks would make a difference compared to, I mean, I had to take little kids through in snowflakes, sometimes to trick or treat. And I'm done with that. I think we just move the holiday already.
Yeah. When my aunts were kids, my grandpa, this was in like the early 90s in Hudson, Wisconsin. There was apparently some huge snowstorm in like the early 90s, and he remembered.
That's the one I'm talking about, the blizzard of 91. Yep.
He took them trick-or-treating on a snowmobile.
Yeah. Well, because you could, and nobody knew it was going to be that bad. We knew it was going to be snowing. This was like 2 or 3 days after the Minnesota Twins had won the World Series. We were living in the Twin Cities at the time for Sherry's medical residency. And we had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And we really wanted to take them out. And Sherry eventually did, in the snow was coming sideways, and, the next morning there was like a foot of snow, but she still had to drive into work. And she came home at the end of the storm when 30 inches of snow had fallen in the Twin Cities.
How did she get through the road? How did anyone get through the road?
I still don't know how she pulled that one off. Actually, if you ask her, she'll say she doesn't either. Sleep deprivation will sometimes do that to you, but she was like, I'm coming home to my own bed. And that was kind of what got the ball rolling for me of why are we doing this on October 31st? Can't we do something about this? Because it's going to get cold. It's going to get really cold next week. Right now it's pretty mild out there. 6 a.m. temperatures include 52 at Lake Wissota, 59 down there by Sam and Madison, 57 in Waukesha. La Crosse, you're at 61. The Wausau temperature gauge isn't working this morning, so I checked out Park Falls. You're at 48 degrees. Wisconsin Rapids 59, Green Bay 60, and Hayward is at 48 degrees. And again, full details on the forecast from Weatherology coming up just about an hour from now. Now, just as surprising as how cold it's going to get in a couple of days would be the baseball playoffs. We now know who's going to be in the World Series, and it's going to be a number 6 team from the National League versus a number 5 team from the American League, an all wild card World Series. Like it or not, that's how the playoffs are set up. You can let the wild card teams in. The wild card teams can sometimes get hot at just the right time. So when the Arizona Diamondbacks beat the Brewers in the first round of the playoffs, there was a lot of hand wringing and, what all did the Brewers get wrong? And not that those questions weren't valid, but it's now become clear that Arizona has done some serious things right, because they went through the Brewers and then they went through the Los Angeles Dodgers, a 100-win team. And now they've beaten the Philadelphia Phillies by winning games 6 and 7 in Philly. Arizona stunned the Phillies 4-2. And so now Arizona moves on to the World Series to take on the just as surprising Texas Rangers, who had knocked off the number 1 seed, the Baltimore Orioles, and the number 2 seed, the Houston Astros, to get to the final matchup. And that will start Friday in Arlington, Texas. So you've got some big news for some teams that did not think they were going to go as far. Mark from Prairie du Sac is in this morning, and it appears that I'm not the only one who has fond memories, fond in quotation marks, of the 1991 blizzard, right, Mark? Good morning.
Yeah, that's really pretty ironic, because I'd been up there it was up north from my home down here, down south, and up north in Douglas County there, and was due to go duck hunting with a buddy's dad that morning, and because he'd been out the evening before, and there was just supposed to be a couple inches of snow.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not going to be a problem at all, but it just kept snowing and snowing and snowing. So we started shoveling, my dad and I started shoveling and blowing snow that first day, and we kept up with it. So we just had to knock out the end of the driveway when the snow plows finally came through, but I think it was close to 4 feet of snow we had.
Mm-hmm.
A place up in rural Douglas County. But I see our legislature is hard at work, to get into your earlier stories, hard at work on things we do not need to do, like the voter constitutionalizing the voter ID thing, and
Yep.
The whole no private money for administering elections. Well, then put enough state funding in to fund our elections, and it just kind of strikes me that kind of parallels with these other states where, and I'm not sure if it's true in Wisconsin, you can't give water or food to people standing in line when they're standing in line to vote.
Oh yeah, that was something in Georgia, and the private money they're talking about is from a group that Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook had given money to, and so they've been derisively trying to ban that. But yeah, Mark, like everything else, if you're not going to fund it adequately at the government level, then private entities are going to step in. So how about you fund the elections fairly, right?
Right, and what strikes me is the whole, not being can't have that kind of funding. Well, then why are these judges able to take luxury vacations and stuff like that? Not considered a bribe, and hand somebody a bottle of water when they're standing.
Oh my gosh. That's so perfect. Yes, a bottle of water. Well, can't have that. But luxury vacations, yes, we absolutely can do. Mark, appreciate it. Thank you for calling in so bright and early with the memories of the 91 blizzard. Appreciate that very much. I hope people didn't mind my prattling on here as we get used to a new commercial clock here. And so we will be taking that break next. Then we will be hearing from Sharita Booker with some of the stories that you've been clicking on through the Up North News social media feeds. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning, when you're here, you're up north. We'll be right back.
All right. Going well so far, I think.
Yeah, I actually had a bunch of stuff I didn't get to, so that's a good thing.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I'll prattle for a bit here. I know that I have to hit the Sharita tape by 6:22. So,
okay, so you're coming in first?
I'm coming in first, yep.
Got it.
On top of Tina Turner there.
Mm-hmm.
All I want is a little reaction, just enough to
We'll tell you in just a little bit in our history lesson and music break why we're playing Tina Turner and what musical milestone was set on this day in 1986. So stick around for that. I'm just going to mention briefly the speaker's race. The new nominee is Mike Johnson of Louisiana. No, I'd never heard of him either, but turns out he's a far right who was one of the people leading the charge to get members of Congress to sign on to a Texas lawsuit back after the 2020 election that asked the U.S. Supreme Court to basically throw out your votes, throw out the votes in Wisconsin and 3 other states. It was ridiculous. It was far beyond the law. And of course, Tom Tiffany signed on to it. Tom Tiffany signed on to a friend of the court brief, along with this Mike Johnson from Louisiana, asking a court to throw out the Wisconsin election results based on nothing, based on rumors, conspiracies, and lies. That Mike Johnson is going to become the new speaker. Yeah, we thought it was going to be Tom Emmer of Minnesota, but folks said, including Donald Trump, that he wasn't Republican enough. All that meant was he would not deny the election results right away. He eventually did play along with the game, but apparently not fast enough for the Trumpers. And so now it's going to be Mike Johnson who's up for a speaker vote later today. And let's visit now with Sharita Booker, social media manager for Up North News. Up North News is what's called a digital newsroom. What does that mean? It means we don't have a printing press, so we don't do a newspaper. We don't have a broadcast tower. We're not a radio station or a TV newsroom. Thankfully, we have Civic Media for a radio outlet. But most of the Up North News product is digital. So it's the newsletter, it's the website, and it's all these social media platforms. And Sharita Booker takes all of the work that we do and puts it out there onto those platforms. And once a week, we check in with her to see which stories are gaining traction out there. Hey, Sharita, how are you?
Good, Pat. How are you?
I am good, thanks. There are, we pick 3 stories each week to highlight, and the first 2 come courtesy of our colleague Selena Heller. One of them quite personally, because of an elk that came to visit her home area in Jackson County. You might have heard her talk about it last week. I'm sure we'll talk to her about it the next time she's on as well. But Sharita, you'd put this video up, and you're kind of watching the ticker go up and up as people watch it.
Yeah. So that elk was spotted roaming around a number of farms in Jackson County. So there's actually about like 70 in that area. So if you live in that area, be on the lookout. You'll probably see one this fall. And they're actually part of the DNR's reintroduction project. So you'll probably see it wearing its radio collar, which allows it to be monitored. That post had over 1,500 likes and almost 400 shares on our Facebook page. And we had a comment from Barbara O'Brien saying, "So majestic, struts like he owns the area. Beautiful."
Oh, very much so. What did you think when you first saw it?
I definitely will never see any in my area in Milwaukee. So it's cool to see that it's roaming around some part in our state.
Yeah. I mean, look, up here on the lake, I don't see a lot of, we see the squirrels and all that, but we've had deer run through the backyard, but it would definitely get my attention even up here if I were to say an elk walk through. And I can't blame people if they think, wait, is this a reindeer? Did it escape? Because the radio collar is actually quite large. It's a very thick red collar. So you'd almost expect there to be sleigh bells on it, but there definitely are not. Stay back from them, shoot your video from afar, and just enjoy the view. So I'm glad people got to enjoy that, and I'm glad Selena was able to share that with us. We talked to her last week as well about it being National Farmers Day, and her late father was a beef farmer up there in Jackson County. And, we all know about the Paul Harvey poem, God Made a Farmer. But then there was a spoof, kind of a takeoff on it that we put on the following day. And Sharita, that one kind of struck a chord with people as well. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, so we did 2 posts. We did the traditional God Made a Farmer post, and then we did another one the next day. And it was sort of a parody video dedicated to grain cart drivers who work alongside farmers. And that was by Yellow and Company Farmhouse. That post had over 5,000 likes on our Facebook page and more than 500 shares. The comment section was full of people giving thanks and shout outs to Wisconsin farmers.
As well they should. And I can't do the video justice because plus there's a curse word or two in there. But again, it's one thing to drive the combine, but for folks who aren't aware, that's not where all the crop goes. And so a cart goes alongside, and then there's a chute coming out of the combine, and the grain cart drivers basically got to drive in tandem with the combine driver so that everything coming out of the chute from the combine goes into the wagon and doesn't spill. And it's not easy, as you could tell if you ever go click on this post and hear how it is properly described. So I was really glad that we got to share that with folks in the past week, all part of life in the Midwest and the farming that gets done in the Midwest. But Sharita, somebody asks the eternal question, much like we ask, where does up north begin? There's where does the Midwest begin? And we saw the latest volley in that ongoing war in a recent post.
So there was a report by Midwest Review that found out which states most identify as part of the Midwest. So we shared a map that shows which percentage of people in each state believe they live in the Midwest. And believe it or not 100% of people in Wisconsin think they live in the Midwest. 93.6% of people in Wisconsin think they live in the Midwest. That post had almost 600 likes on Instagram, along with more than 60 comments. Jenny Hunstagram left a comment saying, "Where does the other 6% think we live?" I totally agree. I think we're smack dab in the middle of the Midwest, or in the center. So I don't know where anyone else would think we live.
What were they thinking? These people that, and the highest scores were just a skosh higher in Minnesota and Iowa. And again, in both cases, it was like 96%. So you still had 3.5% of people saying Minnesota and Iowa aren't the Midwest. And I think almost as surprising to me is that 13% of folks in West Virginia think they're in the Midwest, 9% of Pennsylvania, 10% of people in Tennessee. Stop
That's
it,
so
folks.
funny. Right. Cut it out.
No, you're not in the club. I'm sorry. You're just not. But I'm glad that people had fun with it. These things come up occasionally, either as a map graphic or a fill in the blank or what have you. And it's always nice to have fun with people, drawing borders where there aren't hard borders. And we all get to decide on our own what constitutes the Midwest. And I'm glad that we could get that up. Sharita, I'm glad you put up that post and all the other things you do for us on Up North News, on social media feeds, all over the place that you're busy on. So thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great day.
You too, Pat. Thanks.
All right, let's another reminder. I mentioned it yesterday as well, but I wanted to note that National Drug Take Back Day is Saturday, October 28th. That's this Saturday. There will be events planned all across the state so that folks can dispose of unwanted and unused medications. You keep them out of young people's hands, keep them out of the hands of potential drug abusers, keep them out of the water and the environment. So again, look for ways to turn in those unwanted and unused medications. Call your attention to one more thing before we take a break and then hear from Melissa Baldoff with our climate check. It's an op-ed that was put in the Cap Times newspaper by Darren Von Ruden from Wisconsin Farmers Union. He's a third-generation dairy farmer and advocate for Wisconsin farmers, a past president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union, and simply calls attention to the fact that Derek Van Orden is making a lot of noise, but so far has not been very active or outspoken on behalf of family farmers when it comes to the House needing to pass a farm bill. So you might want to check that out. We'll talk about it later. Melissa Baldoff is coming up next. You're Up North. And Sam,
Yep.
just want to make sure because again, I put these in my notes a couple of days ago.
Mhm.
So this next one is out at 49.20,
Yep.
and then but the last one is still 58.50.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. This is a 5-minute break now. Okay. And welcome back. It's time for a little feature we call Climate Check with Melissa Baldoff, where we take a look at things that affect our world, our environment, the air we breathe, the water that we so need and take for granted, I hasten to add, in Wisconsin, but thankfully some other folks are working on it. And Melissa's going to tell us all about that. Melissa, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Well, all right, thank you. Obviously, there's been a lot going on over the past week here, and we may get into all kinds of events dealing with the legislature and state government, but we're going to do more of a focus today on the DNR. We note that Secretary, the DNR Secretary Adam Payne is stepping down, spending some more time with his family. There will be a new secretary coming in. And just as we were talking about that, we thought, it wasn't that long ago. The DNR was like on the outs during the Scott Walker administration. Like they couldn't even talk about a changing climate. So, I mean, things aren't perfect. But when you look at the DNR today compared to where it was a few years ago, it seems like Secretary Payne is leaving the place better than he found it.
I think, well, I would make a little tweak to that because I would remember that prior to Secretary Payne, we had Secretary Preston Cole,
Yes.
who did an incredible job there in the early, first Evers term. So he was somebody I had a chance to work with very closely and was very instrumental in making that switch. Like you said, 8 years where we lost the opportunity to make progress on climate change under Scott Walker and the Republican legislature. They couldn't even say the words climate change. It couldn't be on the website. So you have, as with, so many state agencies and, federal agencies and even in local government, you've got the people who are doing the work, who are professionals and they are experts in these topics. So at the DNR, you have water quality scientists, you have animal scientists, you have people who are experts in soil, in plant habitats, all different kinds of expertise. And we know that climate change impacts every single one of those. Air quality, all these different experts. And they're not, for 8 years, they weren't able to fully do their jobs, which I know from talking to some of those public servants over the years was incredibly frustrating for them to really be limited by, these political constraints of a regime that thought it was politically advantageous for them to just ignore the climate crisis. So, since Governor Evers was elected, the change in leadership at the DNR has allowed them to start talking about climate change, start talking about climate solutions, how it's impacting, different parts of the state, different sectors of our economy, how it's impacting our water, our air, our trails, how it impacts the ability of people to hunt, and fish. So you've had this big shift that we've seen over the past, almost 5 years since Governor Evers was elected. And we're seeing some really great things coming out of the DNR. And I know that's going to continue to be the case under a new secretary because all this fantastic work is going to continue happening and, be driven by those subject matter experts that are, kind of leading the way on the science.
It's not even just that they were ignoring the changing climate, but they were exacerbating the problems and going out of their way to help companies like Enbridge and its pipeline. I'd entirely forgotten about how they used the state budget bill to change state law in 2015 to gain state authority to condemn private property and avoid added insurance requirements for any potential pipeline expansion that would go across the length of the state. And then, of course, there was Foxconn and the favors they did for that, and a host of other ways where you couldn't get prepared for any future damage that might come from a changing climate because you were spending all your time just with business giveaways during the Walker administration. So it's no small wonder that Secretaries Cole and Payne, had very full to-do lists these past few years.
Exactly. Like you said, it wasn't just, we're going to turn a blind eye to pollution and bad decisions of the past. It was, hey, we kind of want to give carte blanche to, polluters to pollute some more as long as, maybe they're making donations to political campaigns or doing things that certain elected officials like to see. So, I think that's been a big shift too, is that that accountability. There is not going to be a time in this administration where polluters are allowed to just, continue to hurt our air, land, and water without accountability.
So now looking forward here, the Evers administration has already announced, along with the DNR, more than $400 million in financial assistance for safe drinking water around the state. It's a topic that I've tried to stress whenever I can so that people understand we can't take our clean water for granted because there are so many different threats out there. There's everything from industrial runoff to farm runoff to PFAS going back who knows how far, high capacity wells, a changing climate along the shorelines, and stronger storms. And so tell me more about this $400 million and the different ways it's going to help with drinking. I didn't even mention lead pipes. There's another one that pops in. All the ways that this is going to help.
Yeah, this is a very significant investment, and it's going to help in a lot of different ways and a lot of different parts of the state. It's going to be money that is awarded to municipalities, over the next year, and this is going to be coming from a fund, at the DNR. It's going to be leveraging dollars that are able to, really help these municipalities make a big difference, because these infrastructure projects are very expensive and they can be very complex. Some communities, are still they're kind of wrapping their arms around just how much they have to do when it comes to replacing lead service lines, when it comes to PFAS. We still have communities that are finding dangerous levels of PFAS, in their water. And, that's something that we're going to see people be able to really, have the ability to make some meaningful change with this money. So one example is in the city of Wausau. They are going to be receiving more than $17 million to go towards reducing concentrations of PFAS in Wausau's drinking water. So, they're also getting about $6 million to help replace some lead service lines in the community.
Now, that's interesting that you say that. Lead lines in Wausau. Everybody thinks, oh, this is some kind of a Milwaukee problem. It's not limited to Milwaukee. It says here 167,000 known lead service lines throughout the state. That
is a great point. That's one of the fights that I fought with the legislature in my time in the administration is they said, too much of this is going to Milwaukee. And it is true that Milwaukee does have a very high concentration just because of the population being larger. So there are a lot of lead service lines in Milwaukee and the surrounding communities, but this is a problem that is impacting the entire state. If you look at a map, and there have been some put together over the years by scientists and health experts that drop a pin on every case of lead poisoning in children, and it's just all over the place. So this is something that is impacting everybody. It's impacting every community, and that's why it's so great to see this effort that really is going to be able to help large and small communities be able to invest in these water infrastructure projects and know that it's going to make a difference now and in the future.
And here's a great example when you say, large and small. The announcement from the governor just coincidentally happens to mention the little village of Reedsville in Manitowoc County, where my wife went to high school and grew up on a farm just outside of Reedsville. And Reedsville's getting about $3 million. A lot of it is going to be used to help treat water that has recently exceeded certain nitrate levels. Because again, you're in a farming community there. You also have some aging equipment there. So sometimes when we talk about these things, and again, you hear Milwaukee, you hear Wausau, but you've got an administration with its eye on the ball that municipalities of all sizes are looking at getting some long overdue assistance to ensure clean water.
Exactly. Like I mentioned, it can be very expensive. It can be very time consuming. And that's why you've seen communities, that have to make the difficult decision to defer maintenance on some of these issues. So between the increase in funding that they're going to be getting because of the governor's advocacy through the budget process, and when you think about this kind of influx of funding, it is a real game changer for a lot of communities to be able to move forward on these projects. And that's not to mention, too, you think about the federal investment we're seeing thanks to President Biden under the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. We're seeing real investments coming into communities to help them, clean up the issues of the past and invest in infrastructure that will be, helpful for the future.
And that, again, worth noting that the bipartisan infrastructure law, which just on these matters alone is bringing in more than $125 million in just the projects I'm looking at here. It was a bipartisan infrastructure law, except in Wisconsin, none of the Republicans voted for it, even though there are going to be communities in all of their districts that benefit from this, Melissa, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And, that is, one of those things we see often from the legislators who vote against something on partisan political lines and ideology. And then when the checks hit and people in the community are seeing the benefits, they want to be the first one out there to say how great something is, even though they voted against it. So
I don't know who represents Little Reedsville out there. I promise you it's not a Democrat. So I would actually hope to be there if they ever cut a ribbon on what they're going to be doing out there to make the water clean. And
my guess would be that might be Congressman Glenn Grothman.
Yeah, he didn't vote for that, so he'll.
That's right.
All right, Melissa Baldoff, as always, thanks for updating us on who's on the right side of looking out for our climate and our environment. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, a reminder that in our second hour, we're going to be talking about the new technology hub designation for Wisconsin. And I just wanted to give a bit of an intro about that here, that the Biden administration on Monday designated 32 of these technology hubs. It's where federal and private sector investment is going to be targeted to grow jobs in industries that increase high-tech manufacturing in the U.S. It's designed to make us less dependent on foreign trade, the supply chain overseas, anything else that can disrupt it, like a pandemic. So especially when it comes to semiconductors and medical devices and drugs and healthcare, clean energy, transportation, and more. You've no doubt heard of we just talked about the bipartisan infrastructure law. You've heard of the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. You might not be as familiar with another landmark piece of legislation, the CHIPS and Science Act, that creates this focus on renewing American manufacturing in these tech sectors. Again, all these things that got done in the first 2 years of Biden's presidency when you had Democratic control of Congress, not the circus that you have going on right now. This hub designation will make it easier for private industry, state and local governments, colleges and universities, labor unions, tribal communities, and nonprofits to work together in any particular part of the country where these hubs are. And remember, the job creation will spread far beyond, the direct manufacturing and research, but all the secondary ways that are going to support the companies and the partners that are going to move into Wisconsin to do this. And we're going to have a guest at 7:30 to tell us much more. When we come back, Melissa Kay from Locally Grown Radio in Wisconsin Rapids will join us for our little history lesson and music break in just a bit. You're up north. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
How are you?
I am okay. How are you?
I am okay too. Sorry to be a broken record, but did the chicken get a name?
Not yet.
Oh,
Contest ends tomorrow.
okay. So
And
voting
we'll
is still
announce it
going on.
Voting is still going on. We announce it on Halloween.
Okay. Did you have plans for Halloween?
I'm driving to Rapids that day, so We're taking a studio picture.
Okay.
Those
I
are my plans.
just noticing the forecast that will barely get above freezing. So, all right, this is a short break now, so we'll get going in just a couple seconds.
Okie dokie.
Melissa Kay is here from locally grown radio WFHR in Wisconsin Rapids. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
Hey, sorry that we have to start off, and you can keep that theme from Shaft rolling underneath here for a bit. Start off with a little sad news that Richard Roundtree, the trailblazing actor who starred as the ultra-smooth private detective in the Shaft films in the early 1970s, has passed away. Roundtree's longtime manager said he was 81, had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, died at his home in Los Angeles on Tuesday. He really, his manager pointed out that his impact on the industry as the first, as they call him, the first black superhero, cannot be overstated. And while I was too young to watch the Shaft movies themselves at the time, everybody knew this song, everybody knew this movie, and it was a landmark cultural point for entertainment as well. So, you know, happy trails to Richard Roundtree. And by the way, the theme from Shaft, Isaac Hayes. That's his music in the background there. I was just asking you, Melissa, if you've got big plans for Halloween now that we know it's probably not even going to get above freezing on Halloween, or barely.
Well, the biggest news we have from WFHR on Halloween is that we're announcing the name of our chicken. But the contest is still going on. You can still vote and rank those chicken name choices at wiscountry.com/chicken until tomorrow.
The chicken still does not have a name. Again with the chicken. But yeah, come Tuesday, we get the name of the
chicken name. Yep.
We are very much looking forward to that. All right, the big moment in history. Well, there are several, of course, but the one we're going to start off the main segment with here comes from this day in 1964. This is the actual audio from the Ed Sullivan Show. And remember, months earlier, it was a big deal when Ed Sullivan introduced American audiences for the first time to the Beatles. Here he is doing it for the Rolling Stones.
Now, because of all of you, we're going to have them, and they're going to have them in both halves of the show. So here's the first appearance of the Rolling Stones.
And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, the Stones were on there. You could hear how raucous the crowd was. Ed Sullivan, after the show, had said, you know, that this group will never be on the show again. He was wrong. They were on 5 more times because when you're in TV, you put on what gets the ratings, and the Rolling Stones were getting ratings way back then in 1964. Helen Reddy. Now, what song do you think I would play to talk about Helen Reddy being born this day in 1941?
Woman, you hear me roar?
I Am Woman, right. You'd go with that? No, here's a little bit of one of my favorites, a slower one from 1975.
That ain't no way to treat a lady, no way to treat your baby, your woman, your friend.
Helen Reddy was quite the superstar in the mid-1970s with I Am Woman. She was in Jesus Christ Superstar originally as well, had several other nice anthem hits. Born on this day in Melbourne, Australia in 1941, and passed away almost exactly 3 years ago. This is the anniversary of the birth of Sarah Ophelia Colley Cannon, who you have never known her by that name. But if I tell you her stage name, Melissa, I'm curious to see if you'll respond with her signature saying that this is the anniversary of the birth of Hee Haw regular Minnie Pearl, who always said,
I don't know what she said, but I know.
She always had that big fancy hat with a little price tag hanging off of it. She was born in Hickman County, Tennessee, this day in 1912 and passed away in 1996. Singer Katy Perry is 39 years old today. And, you know, we talked about the Rolling Stones having staying power, you know, again, dating back to 1964, you know, still going on. You know, the modern day equivalent of that is Bon Jovi. I mean, because I was in college 40 years ago now when they first started coming to prominence, and they're still getting it done. I mean, they're still drawing crowds. Well, it was on this day in 1986 that their album Slippery When Wet hit #1 on the album charts, including this little ditty.
Shot through the heart, and you're too late, darling. You give love a bad name.
Now I have no chance of getting the show back because everybody's just going to want to dance around to this, right?
Right.
They're like, shut up, just play this. Slippery When Wet also included Living on the Prayer. And I checked yesterday because it is one of the the biggest selling albums ever. 12 million copies worldwide for Bon Jovi. Yeah. Let's see. Taylor Swift released her third album on this day in 2010. The album was called Speak Now, and one of the more confessional songs on there was the song Mean, which a lot of young ladies still like, and I think still holds water for a lot of people when they get to the end of a relationship. All right, time for a little music history. We're going back to 1986 here when Bon Jovi was #1 on the album chart. Now let's look at the pop chart. On this day in 1986 was the first time ever that the top 3 spots on the Billboard Top 100 were all held by female solo acts. You had Janet Jackson's When I Think of You at #3, Tina Turner, who we heard earlier, with Typical Male at #2, and the #1 song was by Cyndi Lauper. This, of course, would be True Colors.
You with the sad heart. Don't be discouraged.
It seems kind of funny now that we can go back and say, this is the first time that 3 female solo artists had top 20. It wouldn't surprise us at all nowadays, but we forget there were still glass ceilings and milestones to be broken through in the business back then,
Oh yeah.
Did you have, growing up, did you have particular favorite solo female artists?
Alison Krauss.
Oh, sure. I like her a lot.
Oh yeah.
Any others?
Anybody
that you want to rock out to? No
rock
offense
out
against
to.
Alison Krauss. She's beautiful, but she's not her beautiful voice, but she's not a rock and roller.
But remember, I grew up under a rock, so
I know. But I'm saying that at some
I had
point,
2 CDs. I had Alison Krauss and I had Faith Hill.
Okay. All right. That's
and I
all
had
right.
some cassette tapes. I had a Disney cassette tape. I rocked out to that.
Okay. And then finally, in 2008, Britney Spears returned to the top of the Hot 100 with Womanizer. That was her first #1 on the chart since her debut single, Hit Me Baby One More Time, back in 1998-99. And it's weird. It's been 25 years now since Britney Spears and been on top of the charts with One More Time. Doesn't seem like it should go that long. But
no, you know what? I remember which CD I rocked out to. SWV.
Really?
Yeah.
We're going to explore more of that next week. All right, Melissa Kay, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, Pat. Thank you.
All right, all about the technology hubs for Wisconsin in our next hour. You're up north.
Beautiful like a rain.
Well,
Forgot about that one.
I don't know why, but I'm going to look for that music clip next week.
Yes, I don't know if you can play Black Pudding on air, though.
Well, I mean, boy, when you drop the surprise right there at the end, so that's worth exploring. All right, thank you so much.
Yep, see you,
Talk
Pat.
to you later. Bye.
Bye.
So Jennifer's still going to be on at 7:15.
Yes. So just in the middle of the segment, I'll see that she's calling in, and I'll start to. Once I see that it's her, then I'll introduce her.
Okay.
I am looking at the lyrics to SWV's Black Puddin', and no, I don't think we're going to be playing that next week.
I gotta look at them now.
Oh, Roger, if you're listening, you're absolutely right. You and Me Against the World is that one actually is on a playlist of mine. Another great Helen Reddy song. All right, we'll get going in 10 seconds.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
And welcome back to Up North News Radio for this Wednesday. It is October 25th. Nice to have you along across the Civic Media Radio Network. A new generation of jobs is coming to Wisconsin after this week's designation by the Biden administration that our state will be a technology hub for major investments in high-tech research and manufacturing. Our guest at the bottom of the hour, Wendy Harris, will help us understand how this will work in Wisconsin in areas like precision manufacturing, personalized medicine, biohealth technology, and much more. We'll also visit with Todd Alba. We'll get your weatherology forecast and much more. First, a reminder that if you missed our last hour and want to hear back to that or any of our past shows, you can just head over to civicmedia.us, or you can listen to us as a podcast. Go to Apple, Spotify, all the usual places. Look for Up North News. To winnow it down, you may have to search for Up North News WI. Either way, you'll find us. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. Same goes with our newsletter. To subscribe to that, just head to upnorthnewswi.com and click on newsletter in the top banner. This morning, the stories that Christina Laurie put together for us include a forecast on the deer and pheasant hunting seasons in Wisconsin for this fall, a feature about booyah, not the expression, but the soup or the stew, whatever you want to call it. If you're not familiar with it, you're going to want to read up on it. And a column from me based on our conversation with State Senator Kelda Roys from earlier this week, talking about the sexism that she encountered by legislators when it came to Republican refusal to provide assistance for childcare and the extremely antiquated views that they have on women in the workforce and families who need childcare. So again, for that, look for our newsletter at upnorthnewswi.com. On the calendar for today, Sam Davison is down in our Madison Civic Media headquarters as well. And Sam, for today, we've got, it is World Pasta Day, International Artist Day, Fine Art Invitation Day, Greasy Foods Day, and Sour Foods Day. So we've got World Pasta Day, Greasy Foods, and Sour Foods Day.
Yeah, a lot of food.
If you got to go with one of them, I'd go with Pasta Day. If you're going to dedicate your day to one of these,
probably pasta. Yeah, like I like greasy food, but not because it's greasy, because it tastes good.
Yes. yeah. Right. Or brown food, as we used to call it, because it always comes all brown out of the deep fryer there. And I, again, don't have anything against it, but if you get a chance to try some kind of either a favorite pasta dish, like I have one at Mona Lisa's on Water Street in Eau Claire that I get every single time, or to try something new would be pretty cool. And in terms of Sourest Day, most people think of it like sour candies, but I'm sure there are plenty of other sour foods that I don't think anybody might admit are their favorite, but, kind of breaks up the routine now and then. Like, what'd be a good one? Sour gummy bears would be one that you wouldn't get all the time, but it's like, sometimes you just feel like you gotta have a little hankering for that.
Sour apples, maybe. My girlfriend likes sour apples a lot.
There you go. So there you go. That's what's on the calendar for today. Taking a look at some of the other headlines at 7:10, Wisconsin Elections Commission Administrator Megan Wolf has responded to Senate Republicans now admitting that their vote to quote unquote fire her was, as I had phrased it, imaginary. It was made up. And now they just refer to it, the Republicans do, as symbolic. And Megan Wolf was asked about it. She appeared on WISN TV's Upfront program last weekend. And she said that while she is still awaiting a final court decision, that recent filing by attorneys for the legislature's top Republicans provided what she called very important clarity. She said, "It's really unfortunate that we had to sue in order for us to get these public admissions of what we knew to be true all along." So to back up a step, Megan Wolf, as administrator of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, she and 1,800 clerks around Wisconsin ran a safe, secure, and accurate presidential election in 2020, like they always do. Then there were the Trumpers who were going along with his lies, not suspicions, lies about quote unquote irregularities. And some of them stick to it to this day. And they have been trying to make Megan Wolf the scapegoat to the point where Senate Republicans recklessly, irresponsibly last month had a vote to quote unquote fire her, even though they knew, and they now admit they knew at the time, that there was no legal basis to take that kind of a vote. Attorney General Josh Kaul immediately filed suit to get a court to throw out the make-believe vote, and Republicans folded like a cheap suit, admitting that it was all just basically a fraud. And Megan Wolf went on to say that it's unfortunate that we at the Elections Commission are the first agency that is facing this question post the old state Supreme Court decision in the Fred Prenn case, where it really changed the way that appointments like mine are viewed. And what she's referencing there, if you're not familiar with it, is that Megan Wolf's term expired this past summer, but she's still serving in the role because of a change brought about thanks to a conspiracy that involved those same Republican senators. They conspired with a Scott Walker appointee by the name of Fred Prenn, whose term was up on the State Natural Resources Board. And they basically conspired to say, well, your term is over, but Governor Evers has nominated somebody, but if we in the Senate don't get around to confirming that nomination, you don't have to step down. Now, that makes no sense. But then the state Supreme Court, which was controlled by conservatives at the time, also said, yeah, we don't see any problem with that, which again makes no sense. But Fred Prenn was able to basically be a squatter in that job for, more than a year afterwards before he finally relented after Tony Evers won re-election. But the precedent had been set that somebody can stay in their job until there's a nominee to be approved. Well, there was no nominee to be approved to replace Megan Wolf. The State Elections Commission never forwarded another nomination. So there was no reason for Megan Wolf to step down because of this Fred Prenn situation that Republicans created themselves. But apparently the rule only applied to them when they were conspiring to keep somebody in their job. But as soon as somebody they didn't like was going to use that same function, well, then they were going to pretend it never happened and they were going to pretend to fire her. And thankfully, that did not happen. She did not step down voluntarily. The Attorney General, Josh Kaul, immediately got a court involved, and the Republicans admitted that it was all made up. And so Megan Wolf gets to stay in that role. But the fact of the matter is, state Supreme Court control has now switched to progressives. And at some point, somebody's going to force the issue of whether this is the way it's always going to be now, or do you fix this so that when your term is up, your term is up? And do you fix it so that senators have to confirm nominees in a timely manner and not sit on them the way that they are still sitting on more than 100 nominations from Governor Evers? Why are they sitting on them? Because they can. Because it enables them to, at some point, hold the vote to reject the nomination, and effectively fire those nominees, those appointees, just like they did last week with 8 of Governor Evers' nominees and appointees who were doing their job and doing everything that was asked of them, but Republicans were just able to fire them because they could. It was a horrible abuse of the process, and this whole episode underscores the need to fix it. It doesn't look like Republicans are going to fix it anytime soon, but it sure needs to be fixed. 7 o'clock temperatures around the Civic Media radio network of communities include 52 degrees up here on Lake Wissota, 59 in Madison. Waukesha's at 57 degrees now at 7:15. La Crosse, 60. Wausau, 58. Wisconsin Rapids is at 58 degrees as well. Green Bay, 60. And in Hayward right now, it is 48 degrees as we welcome in Jennifer Wojcicki from Weatherology to tell us a bit more about a forecast that's been wetter and milder, but is going to be colder before too much longer. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, you hit it on the nose. That's exactly what we can expect to see here this week. It looks like a chance for some rain and some thunderstorms for the early morning hours for most today. Just cloudy around Amory and Baldwin. Then we'll get a little bit of a break before rain returns here for the evening hours. Highs in the mid to upper 60s from Wisconsin Rapids southward. Upper 50s around 60 from Wausau over towards west central Wisconsin. Chance for showers and storms Thursday for all. Highs in the 60s for everyone tomorrow. Friday, another chance for rain for everyone. Really starting to cool off for some as a cold front comes in. Temperatures climb early Friday morning, then slowly fall throughout the day as that system comes in during the daytime hours around Baldwin and Amory and from Madison over towards Milwaukee. Mid to upper 60s from Richland Center up towards Wisconsin Rapids, low 60s around Oshkosh and Wausau. Then for the weekend, looks really looking to cool down for all, getting below average. Cloudy skies across the board on Saturday. Highs in the mid to upper 40s from Oshkosh, Madison to Milwaukee. A little warmer for southwestern Wisconsin, getting into the low 50s. Around 40 for central Wisconsin and mid 30s expected around Amory and Baldwin. Then to round out the weekend on Sunday, a chance for some rain from Wisconsin Rapids southward, mid 40s to around 40 degrees for those areas. Chance for rain and snow mix around Wausau with highs in the upper 30s, and then a chance for some snow for west central Wisconsin with highs again in the mid 30s.
Which is another reminder why we try to do Halloween costumes that don't involve a winter jacket. I don't know. I think every Halloween costume basically starts with a winter jacket, and you hope that you can shed it, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case this year, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much. You too.
All right. Again, we get your weatherology forecast from Jennifer every day about this time, and weatherology forecasts all around the clock as you listen to shows here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Quick note on sports before we take a break here, just because, again, I am, and many baseball fans are, flabbergasted might be the right word to find out that the World Series is going to be Texas versus Arizona. Both of them wild card teams, and neither one of them even got the first wild card slot. The Arizona Diamondbacks snuck into the last wild card spot and then defeated the Brewers and then the Dodgers and now the Phillies, beating them in games 6 and 7 in Philadelphia, winning 4-2 last night. And they will head to Arlington, Texas later this week to start the World Series against the Texas Rangers, which had been a 5 seed in the American League playoffs. But that's the way the ball bounces with this new postseason lineup. And so it'll be Texas and Arizona in the World Series later this week. Back with more in just 60 seconds, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning. When you're here, you're up north. We'll be right back. I'm going to come to you, Sam, kind of early in this break just to do a feature story.
Okay.
And then I'll go back to some other news here.
Okay.
Again, it's Katy Perry's birthday today. And of course, I don't have that note in front of me now. So pop quiz, Sam. What did I say? Was Katy Perry 39 today?
Yes.
Yes, I did. 39 years old today. So happy birthday to Katy Perry for that. One note on the baseball playoffs before I let them go. And by the way, I don't even know who does have the World Series on TV later this week. But what I wanted to say was how nice it is to hear Brian Anderson doing the play-by-play for TBS. And I know he's been doing baseball on TBS for some time now, but I almost never catch the national games on TBS. So he doesn't do nearly as many Milwaukee Brewers games as he used to. But I feel like we're really lucky to have, you've got Brian Anderson calling the baseball games. You've got Wayne Larrabee calling the Packer games. You've got Matt LePay with the Badger games. We just have some really good sports play-by-play announcers, which is not easy. Sam, have you had to try it at all for radio or as PA?
I've always been too scared to try. It's a skill I probably should learn, but I've not really tried it. No.
I tried it, I think, like one time, and for a basketball game, and I just said, no way, no, can't. And God bless anybody that can do it. Fox actually has it this time, so we're done hearing Brian Anderson on there for the year. Another story that I wanted to share with Sam, we teased it, I want to say last Friday, about a couple of brothers in Wisconsin were going to try to set the record for the world's largest grilled cheese sandwich. And
I think I saw something about this.
Yeah. And Roger's reminding us as well that Fox will carry the World Series. Yes, thank you. And he also tells us that Helen Reddy's You and Me Against the World is one of his Helen Reddy songs. We mentioned the anniversary of her birth a little bit later on, but a little bit earlier, rather. But getting back to these two guys in Walworth County, brothers, they did. How old are these guys? Are 11 and 10 years old. And
Really?
They set a new record for grilled cheese. The world's largest grilled cheese sandwich in Milwaukee. It happened at the Tripoli Shrine Center on Saturday, according to WISN TV. The sandwich was just about 11 feet long, a little over 6 feet wide, nearly 3 inches thick. They used more than 300 pounds of dough and 60 pounds of cheese and this was definitely a family project. I mean, nothing against a 10-year-old and 11-year-old, but family and friends helped with a custom welded pan. And then the event benefited money for local food banks. It says here that Exodus and Iggy Chaudhry have their own YouTube channel with 150,000 subscribers. Sam, I love what I'm doing here. I don't think we have 150,000 subscribers, but a 10-year-old and 11-year-old do. So clearly,
doing something right, I guess.
We need to be doing something different, and we can no longer pick the grilled cheese sandwich because somebody's already picked that route. But previously,
like an even bigger one.
I mean, yeah, but then you're showing up a 10 and 11-year-old kid.
Poor taste.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the way that we want to go necessarily. So, so try to come up with. Look at this. I'm giving Sam an assignment. Can you come up with a world record that we would break?
A world record break? I can do that.
Well, right after you come up with what else is on our list, we're going to come up with our own holiday. We're going to get on one of those national holiday calendars because there seems to be a holiday for everything, like Sour Candy Day. So somewhere at this point, we're going to make our mark, ladies and gentlemen, on the show, either through a YouTube channel or a world record or something else equally ridiculous that we're going to be talking about. We are looking forward to talking about in our second half hour this new technology hub designation that is coming to Wisconsin and the things that it's going to be able to do. The designation is going to allow Wisconsin to compete for up to $75 million in funding so that various participants can get access to capital and scale up their operations to a national, if not a global level, grow the supply chain, increase lab space. There is going to be expanded opportunities for worker housing and for transportation to support the projects. And we're going to be talking a bit in our second half hour about how Wisconsin's going to make its mark in this. Because right now it sounds very generic, very 30,000-foot level. When you talk about high-tech jobs and high-tech manufacturing jobs, well, what exactly is that going to involve? And when Wendy Harris gets here, we're going to talk about the bioscience, biohealth aspect of it. So many things have changed in technology over time. Think about how just a few days ago, we marked the anniversary of the iPod. And remember how revolutionary that was, that nobody could have predicted. People thought that, CDs were here to stay. Now nobody buys compact discs anymore. And the same goes for our healthcare. So we're going to be talking a bit more about that with our guest coming up in just a few moments here. I also wanted to mention that something that Senator Tammy Baldwin has been working on for many, many years has finally come to fruition and is going to do something that helps make sure that hedge funds, so-called vulture capitalists, can't get away with some of the things that they got away with. And specifically, we're talking about the paper mill in Brokaw up in Marathon County that closed way back in 2012. But it's an issue that's been around ever since, because that mill for Wausau Paper had been operating for more than a century. And then one of these hedge funds comes in and starts buying shares in Wausau Paper, and they were able to ultimately exert control on the board of directors. And they insisted on these drastic cuts so that they could maximize shareholder price rather than taking care of the company itself. And it led to the Brokaw Mill closing after more than 100 years of operation, 450 people out of work. Brokaw doesn't even exist anymore. It lost half its tax base. When the paper mill shut down, the village had to be dissolved and incorporated into a neighboring village. So Tammy Baldwin got to work and sought some new transparency standards in the way that these hedge funds are able to secretly accumulate stock in a company. And they do it through something called a wolf pack approach, where multiple hedge funds will coordinate their stock purchases as a single group, but they buy the shares individually so as not to trigger some of the disclosures that are required. And again, it's just the kind of thing that when you first had your markets and hedge funds, you didn't foresee that people were going to be that low down and dirty, but that's where we are. Under the old rules, hedge funds were able to withhold information about their stock purchases for 10 days once they reached a 5% stake in the company. The new rule cuts that window to 5 days so that other shareholders aren't left in the dark by potentially predatory behavior. And Tammy Baldwin tried to get it passed as a bill for years. There were enough pro-Wall Street Republicans that were blocking her, so finally she started blocking nominations to the Securities and Exchange Commission until the SEC provided assurances that they would consider the rule on their own without the need for a bill to pass. And now that rule has passed by the SEC. They have made it official. And so it is that much tougher for vulture capitalists to come in and do to other hometowns what they did to Brokaw back in the day. We'll take a break here. We will have a guest on next, talk all about the new technology hub designation for the state of Wisconsin and a new generation of jobs. That's coming up next. Well, good morning, Wendy.
Hey, good morning, Pat.
How are you?
Good. Yeah,
All right.
me.
What's that?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Good to be with you here. So I just wanted to make sure we just started a long commercial break here. So I just wanted to make sure that you look good, sound good. Are your camera, is it fixed, or are you able to tilt it down a little bit just because there's a lot of headroom there? And if you're not, that's fine, but I always let people know. So, okay. Yep, you're just fine. I mean, I don't know if you can see Sam, our producer. They still haven't fixed the radio booth camera, and there's like 8 feet of headspace, above
They keep
him.
moving it back up for some reason.
That's the problem when you take an old TV anchor and you put him in a radio studio.
Yeah.
Is he's suddenly looking out for what the camera angles look like? So it's not a big deal at all. All right.
Do either of you have a song you want coming in?
Oh, you know what? I did forget to put a song in there. Wendy, do you have a favorite artist by chance?
Oh, whatever.
Whatever. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, then we're gonna play off of one of the antiques, Sam. We're gonna need Styx and Mr. Roboto. So, yeah,
Oh.
we're gonna kick it way old school to talk about how times have changed here.
And Pat, is Missy joining us too, or?
Missy is not. I'm sorry. I should have given you that update. She wanted to talk about some other things as well, and we didn't want to get you mixed up in some of the political things, and so she's going to come on next week, Monday, and so we're going to focus in large part on the hub, but also on a few other things as well. So that will be coming in. Okay, let's see. I'm at my notes here, and we come back at. We just changed our commercial clock, so I'm still getting used to it. We come back at 6:34:20, so exactly 3 minutes from now. So folks on Facebook are still hearing and seeing us, but the radio will be back in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So 34:20. There we go. So I'll have a few words to say first, and then I'll bring you back in, and we'll do 15 minutes, and then we'll let you get on your way here. So,
okay.
All right, I'm going to bring the commercial slide back up. I'm going to go put some more coffee in my cup and be right back.
Okay.
Here we go. I had to go way back on this one to make the point that technology is not necessarily something to fear. Look, there are still concerns out there about AI, and rightfully so. Technology can go very quickly, but there's also so many ways that its power is harvested and put in positive, proactive directions. And we are going to really see that in Wisconsin over the next several years as the state wins designation from the Biden administration as a technology hub for what's going to be some serious investment in new jobs for high-tech research and manufacturing. You'll see it in healthcare. You'll see it in improving the supply chain. And so with that designation, and again, not everybody got one of these. There were hundreds of applications, and a consortium in Wisconsin was one of the winners this week. And so we wanted to talk to Wendy Harris. She's a former GE healthcare executive who helped prepare the Tech Hub application. She is now the Regional Innovation Officer for the Wisconsin Biohealth Tech Hub. And she's going to help lead Wisconsin into forming a mature hub for personalized medicine. And Wendy Harris joins us now. Wendy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Pat.
Thank you for. It's so nice to have you here to tell us more about the BioHealth Tech Hub. But let's take a step back and talk about the Tech Hub overall. That when you're talking to folks over, family dinners or the grocery store, and they go, "What is this Tech Hub thing?" How do you best describe the Technology Hub program from a national standpoint? What exactly is it in general? And then we'll bring it down to the Wisconsin and the biohealth level.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so it's a great opportunity for different industries to come together and collaborate within their industry. So back in earlier this year, in actually May of this year, the EDA issued this opportunity for different regions to apply for this Tech Hub funding. And the submission deadline was August 15th of this year. So each of the specific regions or industries could come together and submit an application for funding for their specific tech hub. So there's money available here anywhere from $50 to $75 million, depending on how many tech hubs are selected. And Wisconsin, we decided to submit for the biohealth tech hub. We have a great number of companies here in the state of Wisconsin focused in the biohealth industry. And so we put in our application in August, and we found out on Monday that we were one of just 31 regions selected as the for that designation. And I think, as you mentioned, not all of the tech hubs, there's only 5 that were specifically around biohealth and biotech. There's other opportunities around clean energy and autonomous systems and quantum imaging, things like that, or quantum computing. So, these tech hubs are all different. Ours is specifically around biohealth. And as I said, we've decided on that because we have a great opportunity to advance personalized medicine in the state of Wisconsin. So that's what we're working on.
So I was looking at how this was described elsewhere. The Milwaukee Business Journal said that the application focused on precision medicine and commercialization in the biohealth industry. This includes bioscience, healthcare and imaging, diagnostics, and digital healthcare. And so we're talking about not just things like diagnostics or treatment, but risk assessment, prevention detection. There are new ways that you can look at devices, tests, medicines, and so on. So I'd asked you earlier, how can we describe this in some kind of a tangible function, something you can actually put your hands on and say, this is an example of something that can make a difference in bioscience or biohealth? And you mentioned, one particular type of cancer screening, for example.
Sure. Yeah. So, there's lots of different applications. And so, we'll be working on putting that together, specific programs that will be applying for the funds around personalized medicine. But to make it kind of simple, one area is that we've actually moved from kind of precision medicine, which is being able to treat a group of patients in a certain way, to personalized medicine. And the technology has made that possible today through the genetic screening on the front end, testing, and then all the way through to understanding that person's past and societal factors, all the way through to drugs and pharmaceuticals, and then through to diagnostics and treatment. And one of the kind of buzzwords now in the industry is theranostics, which combines both diagnostics and therapy. So therapy, diagnostics, theranostics, and it allows us to, based on that person's specific genetics, not only be able to see the disease, and an example would be cancer, but also treat it at the same time. So that is obviously much better for the patient, fewer side effects, lower cost. And so that's an area that really brings personalized medicine to the forefront. And that's one area that we'll be advancing through this biohealth tech hub.
It's amazing to see how far we're going to be coming from one size fits all treatment when it comes to helping people with their various healthcare issues and needs. So for a layperson hearing this and saying, "What's in this for me?" While this all sounds rather high level in terms of the research and the eventual implementation, all of that research, eventual manufacturing, distribution, all of that is going to need to be supported. So can you talk a bit about how these technology hubs aren't just creating, again, very high level jobs, but all of the ancillary benefits that are going to come to an economy like Wisconsin's?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Pat. So, the biohealth industry in general in the state of Wisconsin is growing at 10% annually. So it's a great growth industry within our state of higher paying jobs. In the past year, we've employed 129,000 individuals that are in the biohealth industry, producing about 32 billion for the state. And again, with that growth rate, we expect that to continue. We do have trying to get more people into the biohealth industry, the workforce, and grow that workforce, upskilling that workforce. So I think a lot of opportunities going forward. As a part of this, there's companies that, as I mentioned, we have a number of great companies in this state that happen to be located here, headquartered here, kind of grew up in the great state of Wisconsin. And those companies, I'll use GE Healthcare as an example because it's what I know best, but GE manufactures products in Madison, Waukesha, and Milwaukee, but they actually utilize over 500 suppliers within the state of Wisconsin as part of their supply chain to manufacture those products. So, it really is a Wisconsin statewide effort to make sure that we have that local supply chain and that we can produce those products right here in the state of Wisconsin.
That's fascinating that you mentioned the supply chain and all of the very many local suppliers and other things that are mentioned with the Tech Hub include, increasing lab space. There may be expanded opportunities for worker housing or transportation to support some of these projects across the country. There's going to be, improving the access to capital. So, I mean, this really does create large ripples in all of the economies where these tech hubs are located. The tech hubs themselves are part of something called the CHIPS and Science Act. And a lot of folks, if you ask them, what has happened over the Biden administration years, they'll point to, the bipartisan infrastructure law or the American Rescue Plan or the Inflation Reduction Act. And people might not be as familiar with the CHIPS and Science Act, but can you talk a bit generally about its focus on renewing American manufacturing in the tech sectors? I mean, we so often think that tech jobs are just in, Asia or Europe or just on the coasts. And to what degree are there these opportunities to improve tech jobs and supply chains in Middle America?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point, Pat. And I think, part of the criteria that where we submitted this grant was really the impact on our national security and bringing the supply chain back to the states. So when we talk about this tech hub, that was part of the criteria that you had to have a plan to have a supply chain locally. And not only is that from a national security perspective, but we've learned that companies with localized supply chains and can collaborate, they can move faster, they can adapt their products quickly. So that is part of the strategy. So part of the criteria, and one of the reasons that Wisconsin was selected is not only engaging that local supply chain, But I do also want to mention that, because of our education system, not only our university system, which is, really well established across the state, but also our technical colleges, were really helpful in terms of, being part of this tech hub and making sure that we can grow our STEM initiatives and educate our workforce to, embrace this new industry.
A new industry that's coming about by way of so many partnerships. Of course, we've got private sector companies that are involved in this, but there's also, like you said, colleges, universities, tech colleges, labor unions, tribal communities, nonprofit organizations, and this is going to result from advances in math and physics and chemistry, biology, engineering, manufacturing, distribution. There really is something for all different levels of partnerships that can benefit the state. It's just hard to even know, where things are going to grow first and foremost over the years, and yet somehow you're the one that's going to be trying to tame that tiger, if you will.
Yeah, it made my job sound really hard here, Pat. But no, I think the other thing that Wisconsin brings, you mentioned the coast, and this is one thing that, as part of the Chips and Science Act, really you'll notice that of the 31 tech hubs that were selected, a lot of them are from the Midwest. And one of the reasons Wisconsin is so strong in our application is because we have that kind of solid manufacturing base to build on. And kind of deep manufacturing ability in the state of Wisconsin. And so, we've actually seen biohealth companies move from the coast back to Wisconsin, not only because we have that, ability to attract talent back to the state of Wisconsin, but also our ability to manufacture products right here. So you can research, develop those products, commercialize them. You mentioned lab space, shared lab space, and then move it all the way to manufacturing in the state. And that's something that the coasts don't really have to the extent that we do here in Wisconsin.
It's true, as if folks are not directly involved in manufacturing right now, they may still think of, and there is still plenty of, traditional old school manufacturing. That we don't have auto parts plants here or auto plants here anymore, but what you have now is this precision manufacturing and automation. And I think some folks would be surprised the degree to which we have that here in this state, almost more than many other states. And so not only do we have the research here, but we have that manufacturing capability that, when all is said and done, Wendy, when we look back, I don't even know if 10 years, maybe if we look ahead, 20 years, looking back at this, what do you think we'll be able to say Wisconsin turned its technology hub into? Is it something that saves lives, saves the economy? What's the legacy going to be if done right?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I hope all of that, right? Saving lives, making really this personalized medicine effort, really growing it here in Wisconsin. And, I think sometimes the biohealth industry is kind of a quiet industry a little bit, like, the auto industry, it's big, you see it forward. We're making smaller piece parts. We're sometimes a little bit quieter than some of the other industries. And that's something that we really want to bring to the forefront and make Wisconsin a destination for biohealth companies to come and grow. And, that kind of lifts everyone's, industry up. But certainly the biohealth industry is, like I said, it's higher starting wages. It's a clean environment. And we really have great companies already based here to build on.
It's going to be a great thing. Wendy Harris, Regional Innovation Officer for the Wisconsin Biohealth Tech Hub. Thank you, Wendy, very much. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Back with Todd Alba next. All right. We are good. Wendy, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Good. All right. Have a wonderful day. Talk again soon. Take care.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Todd is going to be on StreamYard.
Okay.
Or he's gonna be at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What song do we want for that?
That's
quick.
great question.
Seconds.
Oh,
You got a song?
No, you pick whatever you want. You could
Okay.
even bring on Mr. Roboto again. We'll talk about that.
Down Under by the Men at Work, because it was up next on YouTube.
Back now at 10 minutes to 8 o'clock on this Wednesday, October 25th, where normally we'd be, Todd Alba would be racing into the Civic Media Studios right about now. He'd be complaining about rush hour traffic. I'd be telling him that, he could just leave a little bit earlier. He knows that traffic's going to be bad, in Madison. And, but we couldn't even get that out of him today because he's sitting at home. So, he can't even blame traffic this time. Right, Todd? If you're really there, I can't
Are you
see
there,
the
Pat?
camera.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Oh my
Are you?
God.
Are you?
really
I
hate
think we're going to be
technology.
talking about Spectrum. I cannot wait till we get the update from Todd on what's happening there. It could also be, though, my theory is that Todd is accidentally sleeping in because, he's got that new earlier shift. He moved from 1 o'clock to noon, and that might have thrown his body clock off. And maybe that's it. And that's why the lights are off at Todd's place right now. Maybe that's the answer. I'm doing what I can, Todd, to save you.
I actually, I'm all. Can you hear me or not?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Yeah, I know. Can you hear or not?
I can hear you. I can't see
All right,
you at
well,
all.
thank you. Yeah. No, I actually did shower. I know I did shower, and I thought, well, this is fantastic. I'll be all ready, and I'll do this. I have this new computer. It'll be fine. But no. So can you enter in like another? So I have my laptop up. Let's see if this works.
Oh,
So now
here
I'm
you
trying
are.
to
You're
enter
not. You're
my
knocking on the
laptop
door
as well.
again. I'll wait for that one to hook up
All right,
so we
we'll
don't
see
get a
it.
feedback issue. And oh boy, this is there. Now I can see him on this one.
All right, close that one.
Oh,
All right,
my
close
goodness.
that one out.
Look at this.
All right, is that better?
Yes, Todd, I think it is. But now I can't. Let me unmute you here and see if that works.
Let me unmute you here and see if.
Oh, now you're doing this through your speakers, aren't you?
Can you hear
We got
me
to
at
get
all?
you a pair of headphones. I'm hearing you fine.
Doing this through your speakers, aren't you? We
Oh,
gotta get you
listen to
headphones.
how.
Well, I've got
hear
the
his
earbuds in, but my God, I almost swore the
listen
air.
to how-
My
you almost
earbuds
did.
won't connect to my laptop.
You almost did.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
this is.
It's a crap show.
I'm gonna.
It's an
I'm gonna
absolute
mute-
crap show, Pat.
This is.
I'm gonna mute that microphone.
I'm gonna.
Oh, look at that. I can't even mute it. There we go. Oh, Todd, what are we going to do with you in technology? Now I can't hear you through that. I can't hear you through your desktop computer now. Todd, there's a phone number we could maybe have you call in. Let's try that. No, I'm teasing. As soon as I can get Todd's other computer unmuted. Look at this. Well, let me tell you who's coming up next here on the Civic Media Radio Network while we wait for Todd to come join us.
Radio Network while we wait for.
Poor Todd's computer. I feel bad for him. Oh, gosh. There we go. Coming up next is Earl Ingram. He'll be along at 8 o'clock on many of these Civic Media stations, except in the Wausau area, where you're going to be hearing Chad Holmes next on Bull Falls Radio, Stephanie Miller in the Madison area, and then James and the gang in Wisconsin Rapids. And they are all followed by As Goes Wisconsin. And then that guy that I'm watching wander around his place, Todd Alba, is looking for the right connection there. He'll be on from noon to 2, allegedly. And then Matt Flynn will be on from 2 to 4, Devil's Advocates from 4 to 6, and Maggie Dawn from 6 to 7. Sam, I know you're still with me there. And I think that, remember for a couple of days now, I expressed hesitation about, this new clock that started today, that, would I be able to hit the commercial breaks at the right time? Would I fill the expanded first segment? And that all seemed to have worked out just fine. And it turned
we
out
made
to it turned out to be Todd and technology that was our Achilles heel. We were this close. We were this close to making it all the way through. But
There's got to be some hiccup.
Well,
Can't go perfect.
Look, again, it could have gone all manner of sideways here. So we'll see if Todd sits back down in front of his computer at some point. If he does, then I will pop him back in. But let me tie up a bow on what we were doing in our last segment here, and talking about the tech hub designation that we're going to be getting here in Wisconsin. Specifically, and this is what I was going to talk to Todd about here, is this is going to require a whole new generation of students learning new things through math, physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, manufacturing. That's if the Republican Party doesn't kill off the University of Wisconsin system and the Wisconsin Technical College system. And as Todd would tell us, with the formerly known as two-year centers starting to close or be continually, endangered, nobody wants to be doom and gloom about this, but we do want to be realistic that Wisconsin's public schools and Wisconsin's UW system and Wisconsin's technical college system are the crown jewels of this economy. And yeah, everybody else you can say a lot of things. Say, well, what about our manufacturing employees? And what about our farmers? And yeah, those are good too. But if you don't have those three things, then it becomes really tough to grow the jobs of the future. And we have a very real brain drain in Wisconsin. And people get offended by that. They say, oh, you're saying the people here aren't smart. No, I am saying we are losing many, not all, but we're losing many of our best and brightest who have seen the hostility toward public schools. They have seen the hostility toward the UW system. They've just seen the hostility toward, facts and science when it comes to things like a changing climate. They have seen the lack of action on gun safety and school safety, and they have decided to go elsewhere. And so getting this technology hub is in fact a big deal, but it only becomes a winning deal if it's our own kids, if it's our own best and brightest who then become the young adults who do the research or work in construction to build these new labs, who work in distribution, who are operating the precision manufacturing that will get this all done for us. That's what we need. And we're not going to get that under the current political environment. And that's the thing that makes this a big opportunity, but one that we just can't afford to screw up by leaving some of the same people in charge of our state. Tomorrow, Joe Zepecki joins us, as well as Kristen Lyerly, giving us our weekly Hometown Health segment. Remember, you can follow us all day long. Look for Pat Kreitlow Up North on Facebook, or Pat Kreitlow. You can also look for Up North News WI on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Would be nice to have you along. And again, you can keep listening through the Civic Media app. All right, glad you could be with us up here on the lake today. Have a great Wednesday. We'll see you for a perfect show tomorrow. Have a great day. Poor Todd.
Yeah, is he still on, or did he drop out?
I finally kicked him out because I couldn't tell which one I was getting audio. I was hearing audio from both, and so I'd try to mute one, and then I'd try the other. So yeah, we just had to dump out of it so that we could stop getting that feedback.
Yeah,
anyway, we'll work on it. All right, thanks, Sam. Talk to you later.
Yep, see you later.